Inflation was expected to hit 7.3% in May. However, it overshot and hit 7.7, the highest rate since 1983, which has a lot of people now believing that the Bank of Canada will have to move even further than expected to at least a 75 basis point hike in July and even further after that as they try to rein in inflation. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about what is causing inflation to go even higher and higher because it is something that is outside of Canada's control. And I'm also going to discuss the effects it's going to have on real estate going forward. But before we get into it, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. And don't forget about that race to 25,000 subscriber giveaway. On July 1st, we are giving away $5,000 to one lucky subscriber. In order to enter that contest, all you have to do is go to 360giveaway.ca. Sign up by using the form on that website, and you get an extra entry if you follow me on Instagram and if you share the contest socially. And don't forget to make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Okay, so let's get right into it and discuss what's going on with inflation. It was widely expected that inflation would hit 7.3%, which would have been the highest rate since 1983. This was in a Bloomberg poll of economists. And lo and behold, inflation actually surprised to the upside of 7.7%, which is the highest it's been since January of 1983, which is 2 months before I was born, just if anybody cares. But this is where it gets really, really interesting because there was some basket reshuffling here. There were some things that were done. And for the most part, Stats Canada is saying that the inclusion of things like used cars had very little effect to the actual numbers compared to if those things hadn't been included. So things like used car sales are now included in the CPI, which I think is really good. But the thing that is causing the majority of inflation right now is gasoline and energy prices. It used to be back in last year that we were facing supply chain issues. Then we were getting higher oil prices. Then with the invasion of Ukraine, we saw gas prices and oil prices go through the roof. And now that is having a huge impact on our inflation numbers. And the downside of that is that it is something that Canadians widely don't control. It is in the hands of other countries to affect those prices. And I'll show you in a minute the war premium that has to do with those higher oil prices. But the reality here is that we are fighting inflation, but we're fighting a battle that is largely grown outside of Canada, and therefore having higher interest rates is having very little effect, it seems, on our inflation numbers. Now, I want to show you real quickly here the expected inflation numbers. There were 3 or 4 different forecasts here. And as you can see, the most recent forecast, which was the April forecast, had inflation kind of teetering off around now. And what you can see is that the white line, which is real inflation, is significantly higher than what the inflation predictions were in April, which was that it would not exceed basically 6%. And this is just the reality of the world that we live in. We have supply chain issues that popped up. Then we had the war in the Ukraine. We have more supply chain issues that are coming up. We have high energy prices. There seems to be very little demand destruction happening with the higher prices of oil, and it's just leading to higher and higher inflation. So let's take a look at the actual press release from Stats Canada. As you can see, excluding gasoline, CPI rose to 6.3% year over year in May. That's up from 5.8% in April. Why do they point out what the CPI would be with the exclusion of gasoline? Well, because gasoline is largely reflected in a lot of the other categories because gasoline is an input cost to almost anything that ships. And the acceleration in May was largely due to higher prices for gasoline, which rose 12% compared to April of 2022. So in 1 month, we saw gasoline prices increase by about 12%. And that is largely due to the fact that we have this war in Ukraine and we have a premium that's happening as a result of that war. And if you take a look at Bloomberg nationally here or globally, this is from a recent article where the Kuwait state oil firm says that there's a $30 war premium on oil prices. And that war premium is increasing the price of gasoline and energy costs in Canada. And that's what's leading to further and further higher inflation numbers. And then it trickles through the economy because things like food have to be shipped, and higher gasoline prices leads to higher costs in things like food and everything else in the economy. And as a result, what we're seeing is we're seeing wage data come in at higher than expected. We saw hourly wages rise by 3.9% year over year in May. This is obviously not keeping up to those inflation numbers. Now, we hope that those inflation numbers are going to come back down in the near future. But the reality of it is this: we have high gas prices. We have lots of jobs happening, lots of labor. We have over 1 million vacancies of jobs in Canada right now, according to a new report. And that's all leading to this wage disparity. Now, if we start taking a look at things like the actual numbers, here's the change in the consumer price index with and without gasoline. You can see that obviously without gasoline, it is slightly lower, but you see this number is creeping up quite high and higher than we've seen in quite some time, since 1983. That's 39 years for those of you doing the math. Now, as we take a look at other energy prices and we see the gasoline numbers, these are up 48% from last year. Natural gas is up 22.7% from last year. Fuel oil and other fuels are up 95%. So they've almost doubled in price since May of last year. And you can just see, as a general rule, energy, electricity, everything that is involved in manufacturing things, involved in living, the number one input for pretty much everything that we build, everything that we use to move around, and everything that we use to light and heat our homes is up in price and up pretty significantly. And again, that has to do with that war in Ukraine, which hopefully at some point that price pressure from the conflict there will start to wane out. Now, other things that we're looking at, we're seeing transportation costs up 14.6%. We're seeing shelter up 7.4%. Food is up 8.8%. We're seeing clothing and footwear not up as much as many of the other aspects of the economy. Health and personal care is up about 3.6%. Recreation, education, and reading is up 5.4%. And alcoholic beverages are up about 3%. Now, this transportation one is really interesting. Just had a conversation with the guys from the Canadian Real Estate Show, and they were talking about their experience in the passport office recently, where they were basically 150th in line, and you've got all this money that is being spent on traveling all of a sudden, which tells us that there's a lot of disposable income being spent. However, it also tells us that people are willing to pay a higher price for those things, which means we've still got a lot of money left in the economy to spend money on things that are continuing to go up in price. And then last but not least, I want to show you this. This is the consumer price index for different provinces. As you can see, if you're living in Prince Edward Island right now, you have seen the highest rate of inflation in the last year out of all the provinces. If you're living in Alberta or Saskatchewan, the inflation numbers aren't necessarily as bad as they are elsewhere in the country. But if you start looking to Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, the inflation numbers are quite high in a lot of those provinces. So if you're in one of the commodity-rich provinces, you are faring a little bit better than if you're in other provinces. If you're having oil shipped to you from places like Saudi Arabia, you're probably feeling higher gasoline prices than you would if you were in Alberta or Saskatchewan. And if you're in provinces like BC that have significantly higher taxes on gasoline and fossil fuels, well, you're feeling it quite substantially as well. So where you live is seemingly becoming more and more important in the Canadian economy, especially with respect to finances, with respect to inflation, and with respect to interest rates. Now, leading into that interest rate conversation, I think it is pretty much a foregone conclusion now that the Bank of Canada could increase interest rates by 0.75%. In fact, I think that there could potentially be a 1% increase coming in July if the numbers continue to show up over the next few days here in the positive for the economy. So expect that you're going to see higher interest rates once again. If you are in a fixed rate mortgage, you need to make sure that you are planning for 3 to 5 years down the road for that when that mortgage comes up for renewal. If you're in a variable rate mortgage that doesn't have adjustable payments, you need to be doing the same. If you're in an adjustable rate mortgage, well, just hold on for the ride and stick with where you're at. Eventually, at some point, here's what's going to happen. We are going to take all of the demand out of the economy. That is going to lead to a recession, which is going to lead to lower interest rates once again. And you can pretty much rest assured that we're going to see some fluctuations up and down, some spikes and some valleys in interest rates over the next few years. Are we going to see it back to where it was in the last year? Probably not. But if something really, really bad happens in the economy again, it is definitely possible. So if you got those adjustable rate mortgages and you can sleep at night, if you can't sleep at night, maybe lock into a fix. But if you can sleep at night, stick to it. The numbers show us and the data shows us that long term, you're still going to be better off, and just stay the course. If there are some really good short-term rates that come as the yield curve returns back to normal, then perhaps we can start taking a look at locking in, but stick to where you're at. You're probably in one of the best positions having those adjustable rate, variable rate mortgages. of pretty much anybody who's a mortgage holder in Canada. Obviously, if you've got a fixed rate mortgage, don't be spending your money on transportation and travel right now thinking that you're good because you've got a whole bunch of extra money, because you're going to need that money 3 to 5 years down the road. It's hugely important that you have a savings plan and that you aren't disposing your disposable income on things that aren't absolute needs. And if you are one of those people that is shopping for a mortgage or shopping for a property, you can get our Secrets to Getting the Lowest Interest Rate course. Link is in the description below. You can also check out our First Time Homebuyer Bootcamp. If you buy the two together, you get a discounted price. And if you found this video useful, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. Don't forget about that Race to 25,000 subscribers contest, and we'll see you on the very next one. Cheers.